Early mist had barely crept away from the Appalachian foothills when Liam Harper pulled his truck up to the driveway. The morning smelled of damp pine and the road he knew better than his own pockets. The same road he returned from business trips on, the same truck that had become a temporary home between flights. He grabbed his thermos, scratched the collar of his jacket, and froze. The world around him felt alien to its own rhythm, as if the house and the neighborhood were holding their breath. He had been granted a short leave, 3 days, unexpectedly and quietly. At first, the thought of an early return had sounded like happiness. Imagining how Alina would rush into his arms, how he would bury his nose in her hair and feel that all the hours in foreign airports had been worth it. He had repeated this image the whole way, like a prayer. The door was locked. Something about this simple fact struck him as strange. A faint sound, like laughter, too confident, too loud for an ordinary morning, drifted across the yard. He circled the house along the side path, on tiptoe, pressing his palm to the cold handle, listening. Music was playing in the bedroom. Quiet, background, careless classical music that only a woman with taste he envied her for, would put on. Liam froze in the doorway and saw a scene as if cut out and displayed specifically to inflict mortal pain. Alina stood in front of the mirror, in his old cotton shirt, the very one he fell asleep in after night shifts, smelling of gasoline and coffee. Her hair was carelessly gathered, the weariness visible beneath her makeup, but her smile, her lips trembled with something other than happiness. Beside her, adjusting his cuffs, stood Gavin Reed, her boss and a man Liam respected no less than family. Smart, confident, the same man who had once offered Liam a hand out of a career dead end. Everything looked so ordinary that the betrayal was even sharper. 2 people in a room, a warm lamp, a cup of tea on the nightstand, and betrayal, clear as a point-blank shot. Gavin turned first, his smile fading, and his gaze swept over Liam as if assessing the damage he had just inflicted not only on the man, but on himself. Liam? His voice was thin, like an old thread. You're back early? Alina paled to a porcelain shade, her gaze darting to the door, then to him, like a trapped animal searching for a way out. Liam took a step inside, slowly, as if testing the strength of the ice beneath his feet. The first thing that hit him was not a scream, not a question, but icy calm. He stood and watched as a crystal vase on the dresser reflected his silhouette. He heard something click inside him, as if a mechanism honed by years of waiting and control had engaged, not to let anger spill until a plan was ready. I can explain everything, Alina forced out, her voice breaking between justification and plea. I'm listening, Liam replied evenly, without raising his voice. His shoulders were straight, and in that straightness lay a threat not to the body, but to the future, a man who had gathered all the facts before letting emotion take over. Gavin took a step toward the door, his eyes narrowing with a mix of shame and anger. I think I should leave, he said, but Liam only shook his head. No, you won't. First, answer me. A pause hung in the room, smelling of the ashes of others' hopes. How long? Liam asked quietly. They exchanged glances. In that look was everything. Pleas, justifications, calculation. Alina opened her lips, and the only word that escaped sounded like a verdict. For months, she whispered. For months, exactly since the day he got the promotion and stayed away on business trips more often. Exactly since the moment Gavin stopped hiding work dinners from him. The picture formed quickly in Liam's mind, like a documentary. Every message, every postponed trip, every missed night for the sake of preparing a presentation. But instead of collapsing to the floor and screaming in pain, he let out a steady, all right. Alina stepped forward, her face a mix of guilt and determination. It's not what you think. We made a mistake. A mistake, Liam repeated, and his voice again held cold equality. Mistakes have consequences. He left the room without sudden movements. In the kitchen, the weak rays of morning sun lay on the table. Liam picked up a notebook, the same thin pad where he kept accounts, notes, to-do lists. He wasn't looking for scenes, he was gathering evidence. The journalist's habit of recording facts saved him from impulsive actions. He opened his phone, scrolling through old emails, messages, photos, and discovered what he didn't want to think about. The dates matched, the edges of events were connected by threads that led straight to Gavin. He returned to the bedroom and closed the door on the latch, not to lock someone in, but to close the circle of attention and keep everything under control. A strategy was forming in his mind. First, document. Then, notify the right people. Then, act so that the truth would not dissolve in hysteria. Do you understand what this means? He asked Alina, not raising his voice. I do, she whispered. Tears, the kind that usually wrung hearts, at that moment seemed like a farce. Too late. Liam looked at Gavin. Have you forgotten what mirrors look like, Gavin? He said without malice, but the word forgotten sounded like a verdict. I trusted you. Gavin reddened. His mask of confidence cracked. He tried to form a word, but instead something vague came out, like an excuse that creeps up and weakly warms. Liam sat on the edge of the bed, took a piece of paper from the nightstand, and began to write. A list, an enumeration of facts, dates, amounts, meetings, names. Each entry was like a brand of reality, not emotion, but evidence. He gave himself a minute to let anger become a cold, calculating force. Outside, a neighbor's car sped down the wet asphalt, and the sound of its tires dissipated, like the world's attempt to restore its former rhythm. But return was already impossible. The air in the house had changed, absorbing the old vows and promises, and releasing a transparent line that could not be erased. Your move out is today, he said calmly, not looking at Alina. Pack your things. Her eyes widened. Where? She whispered. Anywhere, he replied. Just not here. He stood, walked to the window, and stared at the street where life continued in its circles. People with dogs, the mailman who was never late. It seemed the world outwardly did not notice that in one house, an entire universe had collapsed. And yet, inside Liam, there was no vengeance in the crude, simple sense. There was cold determination to restore justice. He did not want destruction for the sake of destruction. He wanted truth, acknowledgement, and restitution. But the first steps always began with a hard line, a document, a witness, a hand that cannot be turned away. He turned to both of them, composed, like a machine ready to start. I have until noon, he said evenly, before I start gathering witnesses and copying everything you tried to hide. I'm giving you a chance to leave with dignity. Alina slumped, her gaze falling to splinters. Gavin, unable to admit defeat, paled. Liam, please, Alina began, but her words were already losing weight. The house listened to them, and in it accumulated a story it no longer wanted to keep under its roof. Liam placed his hand on the doorknob, and his fingers clenched into a fist, not out of anger, but to remind himself, step by step, fact by fact. He took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway, where music was playing, now alien, now out of place. The door closed behind him. A new seam of reality remained in the house, a line that could not be taken back. Liam knew one thing. Return in his life would come at a different price, and he was ready to pay it. Morning came too quickly at the house on Widerclin Road, as if the night, filled with tension, had slipped away without giving Emery a second's respite. She woke up before the alarm, from the feeling that something had changed. The room was the same, but the air in it seemed thicker, heavier, saturated with a foreign presence. Emery threw on a shirt and walked into the hallway. The house greeted her with a strange silence, the kind that happens not when no one is there, but when someone is there, but silent. In the kitchen, she made coffee, listening to the sounds around her. The old walls crackled, as if whispering to each other. But among these familiar rustles was another sound, quiet, muffled, barely noticeable, like footsteps above her. She froze. In the house where she and Nathan lived alone. In the house where no one could walk on the second floor except them. She forced herself not to react immediately. It was too easy to give in to panic. Instead, she took a sip of scalding coffee and went upstairs. The stairs creaked under her steps. The doors on the second floor stood open, all except one. The room Nathan used as an office was closed. Emery felt a chill run down her spine. Nathan? She called softly. Silence. The door gave way too easily, and inside, it smelled of his cologne, fresh, sharp, leaving the impression of a man's presence in the air. But Nathan himself was not there. Instead, there were two glasses on the table. One half empty. The other, new, clean. Too clean. Emery couldn't find an explanation. The night before, they had been together. He hadn't come up here. She remembered it well, because they had hardly left each other's side. Next to the glasses lay a scrap of paper, a corner of a page, with fresh fingerprints visible. Not hers. Not Nathan's. Whose? Emery felt her heart beat faster. She was a documentarian. She was used to seeking the truth, analyzing, making connections. But here, these skills only heightened her anxiety. Too many little things didn't add up. Who had been in their house last night? And why had Nathan pretended everything was fine? When she went downstairs, he was already at the door, getting ready for work. Too smiley. Too calm. His gaze lingered on her face for only a moment, catching her anxiety, but he said nothing. Just, "Good morning, Em. Did you sleep well?" She nodded, though it was a lie. He hugged her briefly, as if afraid to touch her longer, and left. The door closed, but the feeling of a foreign presence remained. Emery ran her hand over the countertop. The glass was still warm. Someone had really been here. Very recently. And this someone had left behind not only traces, they had left the feeling that a game had begun. And Emery didn't even know what rules she would have to follow. But she knew one thing. The house was hiding something. And so was Nathan. And if she didn't start looking for answers now, she might soon lose not only the truth, but herself. Emery returned home late in the evening. Outside, a thick January fog had already settled, the kind that swallows streets, making houses seem ghostly. She turned on the light in the hallway, and the house seemed to shudder, meeting her with tense silence. Since she had found the strange glasses in the office, her sense of unease had only grown. Nathan had not returned by night. He hadn't written, hadn't called, and that was not like him. Emery took off her coat, and her wary gaze fell to the floor by the stairs. There was a mark there, a smeared dark streak, very much like dirt from the street, but not only. It gave off a smell, metallic, sharp, the smell of blood. Cold struck her under the ribs. She stepped closer. The mark stretched up the stairs, an uneven line, as if someone had climbed, holding onto the railing. Nathan? Her voice dissolved into silence. No answer. Emery climbed the stairs, feeling her heart pound in her temples. Each step was heavy, as if the house resisted her presence. On the second floor, the office door was closed again. Too neatly closed. Too deliberately. She slowly placed her hand on the knob. A gentle push, and the door opened quietly. The room was dark. Only a dull strip of light fell from the window. On the table, one glass. The same one. Now it was empty. But that wasn't the worst. The worst was that on the tabletop lay a note. Her name, written hastily, unevenly. Emery. Don't trust. And a break. Nathan? Barely breathing, she took a step forward. And then she heard it. Breathing. Very quiet. Very close. But not male. She froze. The breathing came from the corner of the room, from the part where the lamp's light didn't reach. Her heart clenched. Who's there? Her voice trembled. And at that moment, a sound was heard. A rasp. A muffled rustle of fabric. As if someone was trying to break free. Emery lunged for the light switch. The light hit the room, bright, cutting. And she saw. In the corner, slumped against the wall, sat Nathan. Pale-faced. Mouth taped shut. Hands tied behind his back. His eyes were wide open. Not fear, no. A warning. He desperately shook his head. Don't come closer. But it was too late. When Emery took a step toward him, the floor behind her creaked softly. She turned around, and the man standing in the doorway was not familiar to her. Middle-aged, in dark clothes, with a face that was impossible to read. But the main thing, he was holding her phone in his hands. Hers. Phone. You're finally home, Emery, he said in a calm, almost friendly voice. We've been waiting so long for you to stop interfering. She felt her legs turn to cotton. Who are you? The man smiled, softly, but emptily. The one who knows that your husband hasn't told you everything. And the one who is going to finish what he started. Nathan writhed, trying to scream through the tape on his mouth. Emery felt the world tilt. What do you want from us? The man raised a finger to his lips. Silence. For now, nothing. I just want you to understand, you've been lied to for a very long time. And today, he glanced at the glass. For the first time in years, the truth was closer than you thought. He took a step back, as if preparing to leave. But don't worry, Emery, he said, we'll definitely talk again. And he disappeared into the hallway. Quietly, as if dissolving. Emery rushed to her husband, her hands shaking. She tore the tape from his mouth. Nathan coughed, desperately grasping for air. And his first word was not her name. But, he's coming back. Emery recoiled. Who? What's happening? Nathan looked up, full of guilt, fear, and something else. I'm sorry, Em. It all started before you. You were never supposed to, he swallowed. They're coming for me. And now, for you. At that moment, the front door slammed downstairs. Someone else had entered the house. And the climax was only beginning. The house fell into such silence that Emery felt she could hear her own blood. The slam of the front door still echoed in the corridors, as if someone had deliberately made the sound louder to announce, I'm here. Nathan sat on the floor, barely conscious. Emery stood up abruptly. Instinct kicked in before fear. Stay here, she whispered. Emery, no. Nathan tried to get up, but his body betrayed him. Don't go there. You don't know who it is. She was already on the first step. But I know one thing, she breathed out. If we do nothing, we're both dead. The foggy light of the street lamp seeped through the glass by the door. It spread across the floor in uneven stripes, like claw marks. The house felt foreign. Every corner, suspicious. Every shadow, alive. At the foot of the stairs, she froze. Rustle. Creak. An indistinct silhouette moved through the living room. Emery groped for a heavy ceramic vase on the console, a gift from Nathan, which she had always considered tasteless. Now it became a weapon. Deep breath. And she stepped into the living room. Who's there? Her voice trembled, but remained loud enough. The silhouette stopped and stepped into the light. Emery felt the world shift for a second, as if reality had been pulled at the edge. In front of her stood a woman, in her mid-40s, in an expensive but worn coat, with eyes that looked straight into the soul, confidently, coldly, as if she knew everything about Emery. You. Emery raised the vase higher. Who are you? The woman tilted her head slightly, as if studying her. My name is Jane Holloway, she said evenly, and I've come not to harm you, but to warn you. Emery laughed nervously. Warn me? Seriously? After what's been happening here? Jane stepped closer, slowly, without threat. You think I work for him? For the man who was here earlier. But that's not true. The name hung in the air, as if it was about to be spoken, but Jane didn't say it. She continued. I've been watching Nathan for months. Emery paled. Watching? Why? To understand if he's involved willingly, or if he's just another victim. Emery felt her support give way, as if the ground beneath her had become soft, unstable. Victim of what? Who are these people? Jane exhaled slowly, as if telling something so unpleasant that even she, a woman with iron eyes, didn't want to remember it. They call themselves the Lineage. Legacy. A group of people who believe that powerful secrets are passed down through blood, through family, through duty. Her voice grew firmer, and Nathan found himself at the center of their interest. Emery stepped back. That's some nonsense. My husband is an analyst. He's ordinary. Jane shook her head. No, Emery. Nathan is not who he pretends to be. He hasn't told you the truth. Not about his work. Not about his past. Not about his family. Sounds from above. Nathan was trying to stand. Jane turned to the stairs. He's not your enemy. But he's not the protection you hoped for either. Why are you telling me all this? Emery gripped the vase so hard her fingers turned white. Because you have very little time left. Jane's voice trembled for the first time. And because the lineage never comes twice. At that moment, the house shuddered from a blow. Dull, powerful, as if something heavy had crashed onto the porch. Emery froze. Jane paled. Damn, they're here. Earlier than I thought. Emery barely dared to ask. Who? Jane looked at the door as if at an approaching storm. Those who have come for both of you. Those who won't stop. Emery felt her heart beat so hard it seemed it would burst her chest. What do we do? Jane turned to her and for the first time spoke words that sounded almost like a verdict. You have to decide, Emery, whether you save Nathan or yourself. A second shadow appeared behind the glass of the door. Then a third. The house was no longer silent. It breathed. It listened. It waited. And the night had not yet shown its darkest hour. The shadows behind the door grew denser. Closer. They moved slowly, confidently, as if they knew every weak point of the house. Emery felt a metallic taste of fear rise in her throat, the kind they talk about in movies, but rarely experience in reality. This was real. Nathan heavily descended the stairs, clutching the railing. He looked weak, but his eyes showed desperate determination. Emery, he rasped. They won't leave until they get what they came for. Jane quickly approached him and grabbed his shoulder. You could have stopped this, Nathan. You should have told her everything in advance. He averted his gaze. I wanted to protect her. Emery clenched her fingers, her nails digging painfully into her palms. Protect? You hid your life from me. Your past. He looked up at her, guilty, pained. If I had told you, you would have left me. From outside came another blow, this time stronger. The glass in the door trembled. Jane sharply turned around. We have seconds. Emery, listen. She came so close that Emery felt her breath. The lineage isn't hunting you. They're hunting what Nathan carries inside him. Emery tensed. What do you mean, Terrace? Nathan closed his eyes, as if preparing to confess the worst. My family is part of a lineage that, many generations ago, made a deal. Not magical, political. Dangerous. He swallowed. Our ancestors kept information that could destroy the people at the top. This information was passed down through blood, from father to son, from son to the next. Emery paled. And you're the next? Nathan nodded. And I did everything to get away from them. But the lineage doesn't forget. Jane added. They believe he must hand over to them what he knows. Or what is in his memory. A blow to the door. A crack. The first piece of glass fell to the floor. Nathan grabbed Emery's arm. They mustn't touch you. But at that moment, Jane sharply pulled her hand away from Nathan. Emery, don't trust him completely. He kept you in the dark. He can do it again. I tried to protect her. Nathan cried out. Jane replied in an icy voice. You tried to protect yourself. Emery looked at both of them, and the world began to crumble into pieces. Each of them was telling the truth, and each was hiding something important. She had to choose, and choose quickly. At that moment, the door finally gave way. A dull crack. Heavy black boots stepped inside. 3. All in masks. All silent, like death itself. Jane grabbed Emery's shoulders. If you want to survive, come with me. Nathan rasped. Emery, please. If you leave with her, they'll kill me. A clash of gazes. Her heart pounded against her chest. A second. Another. And then, a decision. Emery grabbed the nearest heavy candlestick and hurled it at the attackers. The candlestick hit the first in the mask, knocking him off his feet. Emery shouted, Run! She dragged Nathan with her as Jane covered them with fire from a hidden pistol. The hallway was narrow. The house trembled. Voices were approaching. Breaking through the back door, Emery felt only one thing, the adrenaline that replaced her blood. They ran into the night. The fog enveloped them like thick smoke. Jane ran beside her, but when they reached the car that stood by the gate, Emery noticed the rear window was shattered, and on the seat, drops of blood. Someone's voice came from the darkness. Did you think you could get away? Emery turned, her breath catching. From the fog, a man slowly emerged. The one who had been in the house first. The man with the quiet voice and cold eyes. He looked straight at Emery. This time, he said softly, you won't be the one making the decision. The night closed around them, and it seemed that the light would never return. The fog on Widerclin Road grew thicker, as if the air itself had decided to hide what was happening from the world. Emery stood motionless, as if pinned to the ground. The man, the very one who had left Nathan bound, who had held her phone in his hands, approached, his steps making no sound. Jane raised her weapon, but he only tilted his head slightly. Don't. You know how this will end. She froze. It was a surrender. For a moment, but still. Nathan breathed heavily behind Emery. She felt his gaze. Fear, shame, the desire to protect her, though he could barely stand. The man stopped a few steps away. All this could have been simpler. We only need him. He nodded at Nathan. But now, his eyes slid to Emery. You're too deep in this. Sometimes ignorance is the best salvation. Emery took a step forward. Not courage, desperation. Why do you want all this? Why are you hunting him? He smiled. Calmly, almost gently. We're not hunting. We're restoring order. Nathan is a carrier of information that belongs to us. He is a link in the chain, Emery. Even if he didn't want to be. He's a person, she whispered. He's a legacy, the man corrected. A groan came from behind. Nathan staggered. Emery turned and saw that he was clutching his side. Blood seeped through his shirt. Perhaps he had been wounded even in the house. Jane exhaled quietly. We don't have time. Emery, listen. But the man interrupted her, his voice lowering, almost hypnotic. You need to ask yourself one question. He raised a finger. Is one man's life worth destroying the fates of hundreds? Emery didn't understand. What are you talking about? About the memory he carries. About the secret because of which your family could disappear. If he stays with you, neither the police, nor witnesses, nor laws will protect you. We will finish what we started. We always do. Emery took a step back. Are you threatening my life? I'm warning you. His voice was calm, almost philosophical. Let him go. Allow us to take what belongs to us. Then you will live. Jane glanced at Emery. Don't listen to him. They'll erase him, Emery. He'll disappear. And you know it. The man turned to Jane. And you know it's inevitable. Jane clenched her teeth. Hatred, the kind that had been building for years, flashed in her eyes. I'm sorry, the man said. But no one can stand between the lineage and its goal. Then Nathan raised his head for the first time. There was no fear in his eyes. Only resignation. Emery, he whispered. He's right. If I stay, they'll come after you. After us. For the rest of our lives. Emery felt everything inside her break. Nathan, no. We'll find a way. He smiled at her sadly, as if already saying goodbye. I wanted to start a new life. With you. But the past always finds us. Always. The man extended his hand. Decide, Emery. Now. There was no time left. Jane stepped closer to Emery, whispering in her ear. Sometimes love is a fight. But sometimes, it's what you let go to save yourself. The words fell on her like a heavy weight. Every option, a path into the abyss. Give up her husband? Lose him forever? Keep him? And challenge those who never lose? The fog thickened. The houses around were silent. The world seemed to disappear, leaving only the four of them at this broken point of reality. Emery raised her gaze. At Nathan. At the man. At Jane. And said, I'm making my choice. But no one heard which one. Because at that moment, a blindingly bright light cut through the street. A car. A siren. Voices. Someone had called the police. Or, someone had brought the other side of the game. The man retreated into the fog. Jane grabbed Emery's arm. Nathan vanished from sight, as if dissolved into the night. The light grew brighter. The sounds louder. And the finale dissolved just as the beginning had, in unfinished words. Emery stood in the middle of the street, feeling the world around her change irrevocably. Had she saved Nathan? Or betrayed him? Had she destroyed the lineage? Or given them another victim? She didn't know. But she knew one thing. Sometimes the question is more important than the answer. And this question now haunted every reader. If the choice were between love and your own life, what choice would you make?